Tutorial, we're going to talk about the basics of the Zen language. Zen is organised into two classes, streams and patterns. Streams you can think of as musical layers, so different channels on your mixing desk or different instruments in the mix, and they're represented by S for stream and an index, so you can have S0, S1, S2, S3, I think going up to S63. So we'll just work with one stream for now. So the first method we're going to look at is .set. .set expects an object containing all the different musical parameters that should apply to this stream. So we'll start with inst, and we'll say that we want stream 0 to use instruments 0 with a MIDI note value of 48, and let's also use cut to say that each time an event is triggered it should cut off any playing events on the stream. So quickly, let's just run the instruments utility down here, and that shows you all the different instruments that are available within Zen. So as you can see, we're using the synth. So I'm pressing shift and return, and we get no sound at all, and that's because even though this is valid, we haven't triggered any events. So the next parameter we're going to look at is .e. A stream .e is the way that you say when events should be triggered on the stream. So .e is a pattern, we'll talk about that in a second, and as such there's a whole bunch of pattern methods for generating interesting patterns of ones and zeros. In this case I'm just going to say every 4 divisions of a cycle I would like to trigger stream 0, which is going to play instrument 0 at this pitch. So far so good. Patterns then. This is the next and probably the most important part of the Zen syntax. In Zen, everything is a pattern. Anytime you need to supply a value, you can use a pattern, or it expects a pattern, which means that all you've got to do is learn the different methods, pattern methods, and then you're away. There's nothing more you need to learn in Zen. So before we generate any sound, let's visualize what different pattern methods do, as this will make things a bit clearer. So each stream has an X parameter, which is its position on the canvas, and we're going to use the saw method, and as you can see it generates values from, let's have a little look, 0 to 1, which moves from the left to the right of the canvas. You can chain pattern methods, so let's quantize the output to quarters, or indeed halves. You can obviously keep chaining things as much as you like, so you can multiply the output, divide the output, do all sorts of interesting things. We'll talk about pattern arguments in the next video, but for now, most pattern methods accept additional arguments where you can do things like scale the output, or talk about the frequency, how many times a pattern should generate per cycle. Etc. Each stream also has a Y parameter and also has a Z parameter, which isn't visualized in this canvas, but is still useful. So let's set sine from 0 to, let's do that so it doesn't, so you can see it at the top and bottom. So patterns then, we can chain them. There's loads of different methods for generating interesting streams of values, but we haven't seen what they do to the sound. So let's use the stream .p. .p stands for parameter, so musical parameter. So you can write almost any key after this. So let's just write something like banana. So banana then is a pattern. So we can write .saw. And if we evaluate that, we don't get an error, but Zen's essentially ignoring this because instrument 0 doesn't accept parameters called banana. So we're aiming to be as error tolerant as possible, so that when you're live coding, if you write a wrong parameter name, it doesn't do anything bad. But let's do something that's valid. So mod I stands for modulation index, and that is a parameter that instrument 0 accepts. And let's modulate the modulation index between 0 and 1 using the saw parameter. We can scale that to between 0 and 10. Let's also do s0.p.harm, so that's the harmonicity of the instrument 0, the synth. Let's do random between 0.5 and 5. Let's quantize the output to steps of 0.5. So, just to quickly review, streams and patterns are the most important classes in JavaScript. Streams are the top level organization. We can think of those as separate musical layers, and they have .set method for passing the different musical parameters that remain static, .e for when it should trigger musical events. We can also visualize what's happening using .x and y to move the stream around the canvas. And finally, .p, anything you put after .p that's a valid musical parameter of the instrument that you've chosen becomes a pattern that you can then chain pattern events on. To that end, if you have a look in the docs, if we have a look in synths, that will tell you, so if we go down to synth, all of the parameters that this accepts. And if we go to classes, here are all the pattern methods that you can chain to create interesting patterns of values. And this is all the ways that you can manipulate a stream. So in the next video, we'll talk about pattern arguments and the ways that you can use that to generate pattern interference.